from Meta, Facebook, right, and it's going to the React Foundation. If you've not seen that news, it's great news. I know everyone hates Meta. I used to hate them a lot. Now it feels a lot greater. It doesn't really matter, it's open source, but it feels good that it will be under the Linux Foundation. And that's the only news I have for React. Some housekeeping rules. Bathrooms, down the hall to your left, to the right, males, females. And most importantly, if you park downstairs in the garage, get a ticket. It's expensive if you don't get a ticket. Use this discount code. I think it's $8 flat fee, but it's better than a $50 parking fee. Anyways, make sure you stick around after the event. You hit me up. Very important. Parking tickets. Once we vacate, it's very hard, if not impossible, to come back up to get a parking ticket. I think it's happened a couple times. One time we got lucky. I don't know if you want to test your luck out tonight. That's up to you. Speakers and sponsors. We are community-based, so I get all the ideas about whatever we're doing tonight through emails, chats, one-on-ones, what have you. If you want to be a speaker, reach out to me any possible way. Meetup.com is where we're, I guess, most popular from. I guess the search, the discovery. But anyways, feel free to reach out if you have ideas. If you want to sponsor, reach out as well. Always looking for new ideas, new sponsorships. One of the things that I tend to do is just keep a track of the interests that I get occasionally. If you are thinking about speaking, presenting, here's some ideas that some individuals have requested and or just shown interest in. So if you have a background in any of these, please let me know. You want to present? Let's team up. I'll help you out. Get you up here. Other than that, after the meetup, let's just go downstairs and have a drink down at the bar. First round on the React meetup is literally, I don't know, 50 paces. As soon as you get out the elevators, the bar's right there. Keep the conversations going, chat, network, what have you, after the meetup. I think we're ready for Iryna, for the CSS, modern CSS. Who knows CSS? Who hates CSS? Who hates CSS? Yeah, everyone freaking hates CSS. But I love CSS. I'm a big proponent of CSS. You're not a front-end developer if you do not know CSS. Sorry if that offends you. No, I'm not talking about Tailwind. I'm talking about vanilla CSS. And tonight's talk is a little bit more about why you should be learning CSS. CSS has come a long ways from 5 years ago, 2 years ago. It's a very green field. The browsers are adopting it as fast as possible. You can get away with just using CSS for a lot of things. And when I do interviews, I always ask CSS questions because I know you're not a front-end developer unless you know CSS. Anyways, our talk tonight.
Do I need a microphone or you hear me? I mean, like...
It's fine.
Because I'm really loud, I have loud voice, so I don't think that microphone will benefit me.
Doesn't it record it? Yes. Thank you. I'll put the link up right now.
Okay, so as I received really warm introduction about my topic, and shock, it's not about AI, so we will have some rest from AI topic, this hot topic. So, the inspiration for this talk was actually the article that I was listened to about modern CSS features, and you may say what a nerd will really learn about modern CSS features, if you have AI, if you have React, you have so many like cool stuff to learn about, and you just read an article about CSS features. And I actually do not regret it, because I realized that not only AI is developing, but also the CSS. Like when I read this article, I realized that I have no idea what they are talking about, you know. And I decided just to share with you guys some cool stuff that I found out that would be really beneficial in my work like several years ago. So if I would have these features, it would make my life so much more easier. So yeah, here I am to talk about you about cool stuff in CSS. So who am I? I'm a web developer at John.com. It's a platform for new construction houses buying. So if you're interested to buy a new construction house, if you don't have problems in your life, you know, you can go with us and buy it and have more problems in your life, you know. So about like my experience, I have like I don't count, but I mean like 6 or 7 years of web development, and mostly I work in startups. It's not like important in terms of CSS, you know, but I mean just for you to understand who I am and what I'm like experienced in. So currently in JOM we work with Next.js, TypeScript, and Tailwind CSS, but I personally and my team as well, we prefer not to call ourselves like a React.js developers, but web developers. And CSS, like as was like said also, is just one of the tools that allows us to create stuff. So that's how I approach every technology, Tailwind, TypeScript, or Next.js. Okay, so let's start. So like I wanted to show you like what problems may we solve with modern CSS, and like maybe you came forward, maybe you're not like with this problem, and you have like different devices and you rotate them, or you even not rotate them, but you just understand that your cool navigation bar looks ugly because some iPhone 11 or 10 added some custom system element that just like hides half of your navigation bar. And like what would you do in this like a situation? Maybe you would just like calculate like what is this device, you know, what is this browser, should I use some hack, you know, to add some intent in this situation, you know. So we also had such a problem when our CEO came and said, you know, I have iPhone 10, what is this? I have problems, you know. So then we discovered with, like, this is the second, like, screenshot what you can experience, you know, so you see the system elements just hide your buttons. And it may happen not only when you rotate device, but in normal, rotation as well. So, new cool feature, it's the function which calls env, and you have access to system variables which calls safe area inset. You have access for every side of the system, you know, it's top, right, bottom, and left. And you actually can receive through CSS these values. I mean, the what does it mean safe area? You know, it's the content which is inside your viewport, and we not count the system UI elements. So with that feature, like what do you actually do? How would you approach like this navigation bar with this system element? You would write something like height, like 60 pixels, and I just let's do this the other way, and we add calc like 60 pixels and plus this area. So we will have, if system will have this unsafe element, you know, which will hide your navigation bar, the system will just calculate how many like pixels we have here and add it to your navigation bar. So we actually implemented that in our product. So how it looks like, we have like a navigation bar as well, and it should stick to the bottom. And what we wrote, actually, we wrote padding bottom, and we calculate 16 pixels from the bottom. And if there will be a device that will have some system UI element, it will add some pixels here. Like like how it works, you know, if you have some system UI element that will considered not safe, it will have some pixels. If it's not, it will have just 0. So basically, if we will not have here any UI element, we will have here 0, but we will have 16 pixels, like additional value. So there are some, you know, caveats of like working with this stuff. So there are a lot of like best practices, anti-patterns, but in general, you can safely use this feature. Of course, if you are like lucky and you not work with Internet Explorer, I have no idea whether anyone currently work with Explorer, but basically it's really 95% of support, and you can actually use that wherever you need it to. What I wanted to say, like when I read like about this feature, I came across the statement that you should not, you know, you may think like, okay, like nice feature, let me add it to body, you know, I will add it to body, so I will be safe anytime. So this is considered anti-pattern. So we use this safe area if we really need to, if we understand that we have UI elements that can be like interrupted with these system elements. Just in case, because we have these features, like do not use that. So like with any, you know, technology, before you use it, let's like read about what it does and whether it will actually benefit you. So this is one of the things that is widely supported. You can use that, and it's really like nice addition to your dev workflow. So second problem that I encountered in my life and my dev experience, I had a task. Can you please add like resizable text area? So when user writes something, the height of text area would increase or decrease automatically depending on the content, you know? And how would you approach this task? Basically, there's a lot of like code and Stack Overflow that you can actually copy paste, you know, and it will work. So bunch of JavaScript, but currently we have a CSS property, field sizing, you know, and what it actually does, it says that how to approach, you know, the size of this element is to look at its content. And I actually have some examples, so I will not only, you know, show the presentation. Sorry for it's a bit ugly, but still it works. So and this one is written only with one line of CSS. So no more JavaScript, it calculates automatically. Like there are some rules how you approach this, you know, so of course if you will just write this CSS and you will expect something, like something will happen, you know, so like basically you usually mix this property with some max height, max width, so to somehow control it. What like controls will react to this is text area and inputs of different types, like email, password, everything will react. The only thing that I noticed while working on that, like if you want to have dynamic height, the text area will be your option. If you want to have like dynamic height for input, maybe you need a text area. So if you will try, for example, I wrote the input, you know, but it will just, sorry, I will press something. It will just be increased like, and that's all. I mean, it doesn't increase the size on in height. But you mean like you will have text area and that's all. So what about like a support, you know, of this cool feature? Unfortunately, it's not like that good as previous property. There are some like community discussions about this feature. why they cannot like do it really worldwide and really wide and stuff. So how I approach this, like we have a bunch of products in our company which are mostly internal, like admin product, where you have like a maximum 5 users and they all will use the browser that you will tell them to use. So basically it is nice like a way to remove a lot of like custom React components that have a lot of like features. So like I would not do that because just it's not a priority, but if I would think about some optimizing of the components, for example, I would look at that direction on that. But unfortunately, it's like limited availability, so please pay attention before really using that. So my pain, I want browser to magically animate the transition from display none to display block. So I think you may encounter that in React. So when you have a state, for example, and you have hidden and then visible, you want it to be smoothly, but unfortunately it doesn't work like that. So you need to add some hacks, some transitions. So how would you approach, like in general, like smooth transitions between states, like visible or not visible? You would usually use something like transition. Of course, I'm sorry, I'm talking to on React.js Meetup. Of course, you would use some library for that, but in general, like these libraries work on transition stuff. The main like thing about transition property is that it works on numeric properties. So you cannot like expect that your like transition will work from block to none just because block and none, it's not numeric. It's like not 0 and 100. So smooth transition, like how it works, it calculates like the speed, how it will appear based on numbers, and when it doesn't have a numbers, it doesn't know how to calculate, it doesn't calculate, and it doesn't work, even if you want it to work, So there are like interesting property, interpolate-size. So how it actually works. Like this is the real simple CSS of smooth appearance with fixed size. So what actually written in CSS is like we have a height of 200 pixels and height 0 pixels. We use transition, and transition understands perfectly like how it should animate from 0 to 200, But what, like it works perfectly. It's nice, like a piece of code. But in general, when you work with some, how I work, for example, with a real estate project, mostly you have a dynamic data. So generally you want to animate things, but you not necessarily know how many text it will be actually here. So you can, of course, like rely like 200 pixels, but it's like, it's in ideal world, but we usually work with dynamic content. So we want animation, but we don't know like the final result, And this is where we could actually use CSS property interpolate-size. What it actually allows us to do is to animate from numeric property to non-numeric property. So it still, unfortunately, does not allow us to animate from block to none or vice versa, but at least one property can be non-numeric. So if we write something like that, so what is this mess? It's like part of progressive enhancement. Yeah, we write this property if it supports this property. So interpolate-size CSS property may have different values, and one of them is allow keyword. So it's basically what we are interested in. So with that, we have absolutely the same absolutely the same code. It's the same code. The only difference is we have non-numeric property max content. So max content is basically like be the same height that is content height, And if we don't have, you know, this like regular, like it just appears somehow like it's a little bit ugly. Something is animated the padding, because I add some extra padding, and we see that some is animated, some is not, you know, and it looks like, I don't know, not very pretty. So with this property, like, so the content may be dynamic. We don't know like how many actually height it will be on the page, you know, but it still is animated, and it looks like actually pretty the same as with a numeric property. And it's like, I don't know, for me personally, it is one of the greatest pain on my job when I need to add some animations and I need to add some extra like calculations and stuff. And I don't want to use the libraries because I want performance for my app, you know. So, like, unfortunately, as we have with all CSS, you know, it is also not very widely supported. So, if you have like the app that is like your app, you know, which you will only use in some new Chrome, you know, or you will have a like app for 3 users which use like latest browsers, you can use that, but it's like we still need to wait for some time when it will be widely supported. But still, if it will be widely supported, it will be a greatest addition to the to all of our lives, I suppose. Yeah, so of course there are some caveats to working with that as usual, but you know, in general it's nice, you know, feature. So next, like, we'll try to do something even worse, you know, to create the carousel without JS. Like, I think it looks really ambitious, but still, like, your product manager will be unhappy because of that, because they will want to add extra features that you will not do without JS, you know. But still, let's dream a little bit. So, like, if you want some like horizontal scroll, how would you usually achieve that? So this is basically a navbar that is scrollable. So you usually write something like display flags and overflow x scroll or overflow x outer, and just it will be a nice scrollable feature. So with that in mind, you actually can create like something like a carousel. So if you know that we can do that. Yeah, this one. So here I did actually like what I just said. So I did display flags, like every like slide, but basically div is on the whole page, and actually looks like yeah, I need to scroll it, so I'll do something like that. So it actually looks like a slider, but it's not like behave like slider. So of course we like scroll, you know, but like it's not necessarily the behavior of a slider. So it's just like scrollable block, you know. It looks like a slider, but it doesn't feel like a slider, you know. So what we now have, like with the new CSS features, like we can actually scroll, and you see it became more like I do just small gesture, but it still scrolls like one slide, you know. And it not only look like slider, it feels like slider. So like, of course, I do not push you like forget about all of your libraries for sliders, you know, because we know that like when you need such type of carousels, they usually have additional functionality, you know. But if you need like something small, like the CSS property, which calls scroll snap type, may help you. So how it works, like it has a lot of like different properties, but what I wrote here, it's scroll snap type x mandatory. So it's basically enforces this behavior of the slider, you know. And it's really like, I would say, interesting to explore. Like, it's even have pretty good support So I do not have features in my product to actually use that, but at least I will have that in mind because it really has a good support. So you can try it for your next project if you need to have something similar to what I showed you, Next one, maybe you even know what I will be talking about. So how usually selectors in CSS work. So we usually create a big chain in attempt to choose some child elements. So we wrote a lot of text, a lot of class ID, whatever you can imagine, but we cannot go in another direction. Previously, but currently, CSS created a possibility to actually style a parent element based on its child. Before, it wasn't possible. Now we actually have a pseudo selector, which calls has a pseudo class and it has also pretty good support. So what's the use case? I wanted to show you. So what is use case? For example, you need to you have an error in form, and usually when we need to have an error, we will style we can style form group, we can style whole form, So the designers may have a different desires to do that, and to style that, we would use a lot of different approaches, Imagine that this may be a really big form, and you need to style whole form or show some element based on some small error anywhere else, and without a one moment, so without a this selector, I have the class. Then we add we add this class is invalid. Then we have different strange selectors. I hope that everyone knows what it actually is. So we have a lot of different stuff. With has selector, we can just it looks also ugly, but we actually can write something like, if we have this error inside, please style this form somehow differently. So what will be other use case for that? For example, the form, or for example, we have a product card which needs to be disabled if it has some, I don't know, out of stock badge, So this has really good support, and I encourage you to look at that, because it may be I tried, when I read about this, the hype was big, it's revolutionary, but when I tried to really apply it to some real React project, for example, I realized that it may not be so beneficial, because React, the way how we write code in React usually solves this problem for us. We just we have some property, and if it's true, we add some class. If it's not true, we will not add that class. So we I think that it's nice addition to CSS, but in our ecosystem, it may create more problem that it actually that it intended to solve. So I would approach this carefully, whether my code would be really more readable, and I would write less code, because sometimes with CSS you write you do a cool stuff, but you actually write a lot of complex code that was really hard then to understand. So this is a case for me with CSS grid. You can create amazing grids, but then it's impossible to read what is actually wrote here, and when something is going wrong, it's really hard to understand, oh, okay, what went wrong, especially if this code wrote AI, Okay, last but not least, it's not a problem, but it's interesting addition to CSS. Like sometimes when we have a dynamic content, like we have orphans. What it is, it's actually the single words that are left on the line. One moment. So this is the example of orphan. So we have some text, we have some card, and we have here one word, So, like, let's just say that I personally do not consider that as something ugly, so it looks like normal, But in some, for some designers, it may be not ideal. So we actually can avoid that with one CSS property. It's text wrap pretty, and what it does, it a little bit prettifies the wrapping of the words, and it ensures that it will be in the way to not leave these orphans, So you can actually use that now, and it's also widely supported. The second one of the text wrap, like the second thing that is maybe interesting and useful, it's text wrap balance. So like those pretty one, it's really nice for descriptions where we have a lot of text, This one is better for some titles, for headings. What it actually does, it does like approximately similar, like symmetrical lines of text. So it may be like, at least for me, I'm not so sophisticated, in these things, but like I think that designers may, say thank you for that. So you may look at that and see if it will benefit your product, because maybe your product is like working with a lot of text where it's really important for it to be pretty. Okay, and bonus point, it's what I actually discovered today is content visibility. So this is a CSS which allows you to say browser that this content we don't need it to be rendered. So when browser parses the page, it calculates a lot of stuff, like how to paint all of these relationships within elements. And of course, the more elements you have, the more you need to wait when it will be rendered, And for some big pages, for example, our page of inventory, it is really it is one of the most important pages for the product because it has a lot of information about the house, So you may see Zillow, for example, when you have so many different elements, information, but you cannot just remove it. You need to have this big page with a lot of information, but it still needs to be performant because it's also important for SEO. So this property allows you to say for some blocks that are not immediately visible in the viewport, that it is not visible. So you cannot spend your precious resources to paint this and calculate it, and at some by some evidences, by some statements, it may improve your performance. So basically, it's not it's not like JS library. It's not something magical. It's just CSS where you say the browser, please, this content is not so important. So please, you can just not paint it. Now you can paint it later. So it basically reminds lazy loading, but for painting the content. So the crucial my first question was okay, so if you do not paint it, how it influences the SEO or accessibility, and there are some caveats for that, but still at least they say that it doesn't hurt SEO so much. It may hurt accessibility if you use this property not correctly, because it has a lot of different I wrote auto, it basically means lazy loading, you know, so when content is visible, you may like paint it, you know, but it also have a hidden property and other properties that may influence the accessibility. So if you want to have this presentation, if you like already forgot what I was talking about, you can like text me or something and I will give you the links. Of course, I put here the links that are not on MDN because I suppose you are like smart enough to know that every CSS property is on MDN, so you can read about that there. But these articles, like I was inspired by them and used that for the presentation. And if you want to chat about that, you may want to give me some, you know, CSS master job. You know, you may reach out to me to LinkedIn or just stay connected. You know, yeah, like this was from me. Thank you so much. Like you can ask some questions if you want, or you may. Or you may go and try like these amazing CSS properties. Yeah.
Any questions, comments?
Not a question, but comments. You know, you're saying like we could always do JSX if statements to render stuff and do whatever. It's always better to just do it with CSS if you can do it because the performance just, because you manipulate the browser through JavaScript code. If the browser's like, oh man, everyone keeps doing the same thing, so they give like max content, I imagine. Has to be some type of JavaScript function to determine what the max height is at the moment, right? Otherwise,
by the way, they have the function calc size, and you actually can determine the height of max content. It's the support of it is almost the same for as interpolate-size, but like, they move in that direction, you know.
How much faster is CSS compared to JavaScript?
Like it's really general question, like for me, like currently. So I didn't measure it, but in general, like it's faster. Like, I'm sorry, the question is general, so is the answer. You know? So
the GPU is not, a lot of CSS stuff is awful to the GPU. So it's going to be a lot faster than it is. And then
I tried like some media queries, and I think it was kind of like relatively slow.
I don't know about the media queries, but remember, JavaScript is single-threaded. Right, so all that work you have to do, even if CSS work, if you're trying to manipulate the DOM in the browser, right, it's going to the single thread, whereas if you do CSS, it's its own, right, its own processing, whatever it is, right?
yeah, it also depends on what you do in CSS, because like from what my knowledge, like at least when I started learning CSS, like it was like the case when people tried to use the you know, the selector like star, I don't know, like in English it's star, you know, and it's considered really slow because it like it selects all the elements from the page, so it needed some time. So of course, like if you do that, your CSS will not be very fast, you know, but if you write like a really like performant and modern CSS, I think that, you know, a lot of stuff can be like more performant than JavaScript.
Animation is definitely smoother. So, I mean, I ran into this issue just very recently too, where I was using the React Animate library to do something, and you can see I'm very picky as a designer. I'm not a designer, but I'm very picky about fluid flow. And the animation, so I noticed that little animation trick. I asked AI to fix it, and it suggested some CSS for me. And I was like, okay, swap it out. And it was just a better transition for me. So I don't know if the React for my code was tapped up, but moving to the CSS animation just made it go away. Made a little flip that I noticed. Maybe you wouldn't know, but I noticed.
Yeah, from other like interesting features that I read, but I didn't try them because I didn't have a possibility. It's if function. So we actually received if function, which behaves similar to like regular if in any, you know, programming language. So like there are some statements, really you know, cool statements. The CSS is more like a language. It becomes more like similar to some regular programming language. Like I don't know whether it's good or bad, you know, it just is. So I prefer thinking about that CSS is just one of the tools for like for creating stuff. and like we cannot just ignore that. So I think that like if you have time among the reading of a new AI tool, you should look at some CSS stuff. My personal approach is you should like consider learning something when it at least like 85-90% of support, because some features, they like in my experience, they like they appears, but then like they can be really 100% cool, but until all browsers implement them, you cannot actually use them, and you may just spend time on something cool but not working, and you will just spend time, and like only if you really like, if you're a CSS nerd, But I personally, like, I'm waiting while feature will be just good enough to really try and spend time with it, because it's really too much features, too much stuff, every day something new, and it's just impossible to stay on track with everything. So if it's really, worth the time and efforts, like I usually go with that. Yeah, you had a question?
Do you think we're going to have if added to HTML next?
Like, I don't know, like
Any predictions?
like,
I hope not.
I don't think so. I think HTML will stay like maybe new tags, at least like, let's just say I'm not like the HTML enthusiast, to go and tell you what is really going on in community, but I didn't hear that it at least moves in that direction, so CSS, it will look like programming language, but I don't think HTML wasn't designed for that. So CSS like becomes more like, but HTML is just, it's not even a programming language, so, and it won't be like that.
Kind of had it. You have like the has function. That has to be some if logic. If it's a child of whatever, it has. I don't know how it does it under the hood.
In the CSS,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But like under the hood, how that works,
Yeah.
like programming is programming, right? Once it's zeros, kind of do some type of comparison.
But she's the point is that it's not Turing complete, right? I think a couple years ago there was a huge debate about CSS being Turing complete, and you needed HTML in order to like trigger the CSS or something, so it wasn't by itself. But nowadays, you can write functions. There's CSS functions coming into play already that has you can create variables. Like it's getting there. Is it today? Turing complete? I don't know, but it's a good time to have that conversation again.
Yeah.
That's really a good goal. Like, why do we want control flow in markup languages? It's going to make this really difficult to parse. Like, I'm sitting here thinking, like, yeah, all of the delta-based encoding optimization we have in parsers completely break down when you have control flow in markup language. So I politely request developers to not get super creative there. And just rely on the clear features that CSS gives you, or best use that in JavaScript. I'm just sitting here mildly horrified. Is that a good goal, really?
My I really in love with Tailwind CSS. So it's like there's I didn't see like a person who will be so people either hate it or love it. So I'm on the side of lovers, but I still think that it doesn't free you, from learning the basics. So still, you need to know the tools that you're working with.
I do have a question. One thing is, the presentation was very well spoken, clear. Probably my favorite part of this, what you started off with, was the safe area, intrinsics, and coming from me, like I need to be able to shape or position content where I know it'll actually fit in the screen. I mean, we used to have this in TV and in film, where it's like, yeah, we'd have this really rough heuristic, roughly based on a standard size of televisions, whereas in screens and devices, we don't have that. But I'm looking at, I remember recalling it was a decent browser support, but I want to ask, perhaps more broadly, when it comes to the browser, how do you define what is generally available or can be adopted, maybe perhaps broadly or perhaps per industry? Because I know when I used to work in Japan, is how everyone, or more people than not, had an Apple device which had a lower lifespan, maybe 4 down to 2 years. So I'm curious at how, when you look at support like that, where the threshold is, perhaps in your industry, where you say, okay, we do or don't need a fallback. And I'm just looking at, I think that feature started in Chrome 105, which is maybe 3 to 4 years ago. I don't recall exactly. So I'm curious of what goes through people's heads when they see the minimum software age. Because I know it's quite different in the browser.
Yeah, so how we approach it in my company currently, but actually it's similar to how I approach this in every company. So we usually have some analytic tools, like it can be Google Analytics or either like a tool that your company uses. So you need to know your users, you know. So usually these tools provide you with some information, what devices your users use, and usually just look at what they use, you know. You just then define like the main, you know, for example, like the most like major like OS, for example. Also, it influences the market where you work on. So we work on US, so of course we need to support Safari, you know, we need to support iOS and all of this like zoo of devices. So like we need that, you know. If we would work, for example, for like Ukraine, for example, you know, we like I'm Ukrainian, and in Ukraine, like iPhones has a huge market share, but it's not like explicit. So we also have a lot of Xiaomi devices, Samsung devices, and a lot of browsers on that. So you usually know your users, and you should know like what they use for. Use analytic tools, and we also like. Usually it is 1% when we understand like, okay, so we have 1% of users which use some outdated like stuff which we cannot like we don't have a resources. So as I mentioned, I work in startup. So in startup, you know, you have limited resources and everything. So we usually like just say no. You know, there is some like situations when you need to say no. So you support like everything that your users use, but to some like normal percentage. So I would approach that in every company. Usually when I come to a new company, I ask like, do you have some like a list of devices which you need to support? Because also I needed to check my work on these devices. And if I understand that we don't have a Mozilla users, then I don't care whether Mozilla supports this property or no. So yeah, everything starts from your users and what they use. To that, you need analytics. If you don't have analytics, like I usually, like for example, I don't know, you have a startup, you know, and you don't know what your users are. Or like I was teaching in IT school, and I was explaining to students, like if you don't have data about your users, use widely available statistics about the devices, about popular devices in some area. So if your product is for US, you just go and find statistics about the most the biggest market share, like what devices are popular here, you know. Of course, like you cannot like support them all. So of course you just limit something. Like in my company, we said like let's support like last 3 versions of browsers, but let's look at, for example, Sentry. You know, we have a Sentry, like error tracking tool, where sometimes we see like some like exotic things, and then we decide if it's like really popular error, if we understand that our users really don't want to update their browsers, you know, then we proceed. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
I'll just add to that, post CSS, it's a, I don't know, configuration library. But post CSS, if you follow that GitHub repo, they do a lot of experimental CSS inside of it. So even if 15% browser support, I don't know, some CSS functionality, it would, you can use it in your build. You can use it, the regular CSS API, but when you build your front end, it will swap out. It'll have 2 APIs. One will be the actual API for just wanted to add to that. I think that's a very good question. I recently had a client who had a version control problem. By version control, it's not the regular Semver type of thing, but they wanted to upgrade to the latest libraries and everything to stay relevant. And they waited to the last second to go from, I don't know, like next 13 to 14 or one of these numbers. And obviously when they went to do it, a lot of errors and bugs from all these libraries in this massive develop or internal tool that they were working on. And so they were looking for one developer. They're looking for one developer whose only job was to version control. Every day they come in and they do some commands, whatever. They just on a test platform just update all the libraries from their Node.js, package JSONs, from their React stuff, from the Next.js, and all they do, right? They need their Docker containers and their whatever it is, right? All they did was that because it took so much time just to keep up. I guess he kept using the word relevant, to stay relevant in their software stack. It takes such a long time to migrate. If they can just switch that mindset and be like, look, let's just always be bleeding edge. But that would take a full-time developer to do that, who understands A, B, and C, and D, understands Zenbar, and all these APIs. If there's an issue with it, right, there has to be a process, how to get to production, how to test it, all this stuff, right? But they're looking for one single developer. That's all they do, is just Semver every single day. What is it? NPM update -L, right? See what breaks, fix it, and then, right? Imagine that's your job. That's the only thing you do. All of these things just would just maybe go away or create new problems. But to your point, though, it always comes down to, so this is like a developer, right, who's saying all these things, or a tech leader who's saying all these things. His customers are developers, right, building these things, turn tools. They want to have like developer experience so that they can pick out code or products in 3 months instead of 9 to 12 months. And so they think like if you set up the process for developers, right, you can do a lot of good stuff in 3 months rather than 6 months or 9 months or wait another year or whatever it is. I think to the speaker's point is like you have to know your customers though. Like what are they asking for? What are they doing for? What's it trying for? And then is it okay if your customers are stuck in a version of an API that no browser supports anymore? Is it breaking anything? What's the cost of changing that or adding something new to it? So if you're a business, right, it always comes down to cost. How much does it cost? Because the last thing you want to do is change something and it breaks, and then you start losing money, or something complains, or something happens, right? Or your SLAs get hit or stuff like that, right? So there's no general solution here. It's really know your customer.
Yeah, I'd be curious to chat about sort of a pre-launch perspective, what people do in different industries. I know coming from games and less, perhaps productions with a longer development lifetime that don't live forever, we're chasing the shadow of the market, being that we have an expected mid-spec, but it will evolve during the production. And that is, I know, appreciably different when you combine the web, say the web product, or you're in a specific industry, like if you only serve Asia, for instance, or that was very different. So if any of you in a particular industry that is particularly different or has, perhaps you can just pretend there's a browser, it's a different product and so on, be curious to hear. So I know there's the costing, perhaps how far you lag, or if you have a single person or a whole team, which job is to care about that. It just seems like one of the bigger problems I'd expect on the web, and one I've not heard much on. So thank you to you both.
Yeah, I had a question about how many people did they have on the team that like they had to hire like a separate person to do the upgrading?
No, they're looking to hire.
Oh, they're looking to hire.
Yeah.
How many people do they have on the team that like they had such?
Like 23.
You want to apply?
Your whole job is just version control.
Okay, if there is no question, I prefer to go
thank you.
somewhere.
If you do have more questions, just meet us downstairs by the elevators, and we'll just walk down to the bar. First round's on the meetup. If you just take a look around before you leave, pick up any trash, and remember to pick up your parking tickets. Don't forget about parking, please.
Yeah, that's a costly mistake. I haven't experienced it, almost.
Costly it is.
An Android app. Supporting the version that Google says will support like 90% of devices.
The Android?
Yeah, and obviously we had analytics on it. Well, someone fell into that category. It just turns out that they were using this one specific Android tablet that just was due. I don't know how else to explain it. So it'll always be like emails about like, hey man, this isn't working,
Oh, jeez.
It's like, one person, I was like, can we just gift him a new tablet or something? Like, this is crazy. Like, who even cares? Like, this is so crazy. It was so specific to that weird device. Like, it's driving me nuts. Like, do we really want to pay me more money to be for one person?
Well, I worked at CNN, and so I don't know if you have the CNN app.
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you guys. Yeah, it's good seeing you guys.
Enjoy that meeting everyone as well. It was super useful. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
Can I give you one of
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Stay in touch. I'm sure we'll see you around. Is that your card now? Oh, that's the
No,
ticket.
that's the ticket for the.
That's in there.
Yeah. You can message there or find me in the meetup.
Sonata, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should make some adventure t-shirts for us. Yeah, I know. I'm not sure what's going on. He's got t-shirts for their startup.
Yeah.
should be
Some
doing
swag. I got stickers and pens.
Yeah, okay, nice. Full stack.
Yeah.
Do you work out of here?
Sometimes.
Okay. Hope to see you around then.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You guys.
good.
It's
Thanks,
awesome.
Roberto.
Yeah,
Thank you,
good
man.
night.
Thank you, man.
Good to see you.
Thanks so much. Thanks, Roberto.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Talk soon.
Go downstairs and we'll just say that. You need to. There was another one. Is there another one of those? Yeah. Let's look at that.
Usually they ask me like, at what time are you available? But 6 to 8 p.m. I'm running late. Just for a bubble? Yeah. Cocktail setup. Are you going to office every week? Here, right? Yeah, I went through the whole list. Last time you were there. Yeah. I didn't do that. What's that? You got it? Oh, no, I didn't. Oh, yes, right. You got it. You forget, right? So much has changed. All the lists. I had AI for the question. Analyze people. And it works. Does it make sense? It does. I just didn't find where we have one. Yeah, I love like that. Are you marking there? Oh yeah. Yeah. See the leg. Works. That's why we need to do it. That's all. All scenarios. Is there a UX with I finished AI yesterday. Generation. Yeah.